So, we were reading how Krishna was teasing Radharani transcendentally by different use of Sanskrit terminology or words. So Prabhupada gives the example, Rupa Goswami gives the example of vasa, that it means three different things. And I was just sharing with the Prabhus and Dhruv and Kara and Prema here that in my language, in Hebrew, there are two very similar dynamic in language, and you can really be playful with that. And I don't know how much is that in English, but it's really interesting, like a sense of humor that you can like have with people. It's like a subtle joking mood. So yeah, I totally get Krishna there. To this Radharani replied, "My dear cunning boy, I did not ask you about your residence. I inquired about your dress." Krishna then took the meaning of vasa as fragments and said, "My dear fortunate one, I have just assumed these fragments in order to be associated with your body." Srimati Radharani again inquired from Krishna, "Where did you pass your night?" The exact Sanskrit word used in this connection was Yamunishta. Yamuniyam means at night, and Ushita means pass. Krishna, however, divided the word Yamunishta into two separate words, namely Yamuniya and Munishta, Mushishta. By dividing the two words, he came out to mean that he was kidnapped by Yamini, or night. Krishna therefore replied to Radharani, "My dear Radharani, it is possible that night can kidnap me." In this way, he was answering all the questions of Radharani, so cunning that he gladdened this dearest of the gopis. Artistic. Would you like to read, Kit?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We're just reading about how we're reading how Krishna is cunning with Sanskrit language, and I was sharing with them how in Hebrew it's very similar because one word means so many things.
Nice.
And I would always play with people like that too. And when they would tell me something, I will misinterpret, like deliberately. Yeah.
To play on words.
Yeah. Is it like that in English too?
You can do some of that, but Hebrew and Sanskrit,
it's more
designed for.
One who can talk and dress himself very artistically is called Vidagada. This exemplary characteristic was visible in the personality of Sri Krishna. It is spoken by Radharani as follows: "My dear friend, just see how Krishna has nicely composed songs and how he dances and speaks funny words and plays on his flute. Wearing such nice garlands, he has dressed himself in such an enchanting way, as though he has defeated all kinds of players at the chessboard. He lives wonderfully at the topmost height of artistic craftsmanship. Clever. A person who can perform various types of work at once is called clever." Yeah, I was wondering about that actually.
Interesting description.
Yeah. In this connection, one of the gopis said, "My dear friends, just see the clever activities of Sri Krishna. He has composed nice songs about the cowherd boys and is pleasing to the cows. By the movement of his eyes, he is pleasing the gopis, and at the same time, he is fighting with demons like Aristasura and others. In this way, he is sitting with different living entities in different ways, and he is thoroughly enjoying this situation."
198?
Yeah.
It's 198. Expert, that's the next one.
Yeah.
Would you like to read, George?
Yes. Expert. Any person who can quickly execute a very difficult task is called expert. About the expertise of Krishna, there is a statement in the 10th canto, 59th chapter, verse 17 of Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein Shukadeva Goswami tells Maharaj Parikshit, O best of the Kurus, Sri Krishna cut to pieces all the different weapons used by different fighters. Formerly, fighting was done by releasing different kinds of arrows. One party would release a certain arrow, and the other party had to defeat it by countering it with another arrow. For example, one party might release an arrow that would cause water to pour from the sky, and to counteract this, the opposing party would have to release an arrow that could immediately turn the water into clouds. So, from this statement, it appears that Krishna was very expert in counteracting the enemy's arrows. Similarly, at the Rasa dance, each and every gopi requested that Krishna individually become her partner, and Krishna immediately expanded himself into so many Krishnas in order to be coupled with each and every gopi. The result was that each gopi found Krishna by her side.
There's a mentioning, hey, hi Patrick. There's a mentioning about this, how Krishna expands I think in the Krishna book, that yogis too, they can expand up to 8 forms, but their expansion is like more like a television set. They cannot be fully present with every expansion that they do. But Krishna, he expanded himself not just in more than 8 forms, but he was present, like Prabhupada was saying here, individually. That Krishna individually became their partner.
It's like in each palace. Hey, it's okay. We don't need to. I'll speak loud. Yeah, like in each palace, Krishna was doing a different thing. In one palace, he's playing chess. In another, he's playing with his children. In another, he's taking care of some administrative business. Whereas when the yogis expand, it's like a television set. Each of the 8 expansions is doing the same thing.
Yeah. It's more like magic than real power, mystic power. Would you like to read, Gjergj?
Okay. Grateful, number 17. Any person who is conscious of his friend's beneficent activities and never forgets his service is called grateful. In the Mahabharata, Krishna says, when I was away from Draupadi, she cried with the words, "Hey, Govinda!" This call for me has put me in her debt, and that indebtedness is gradually increasing in my heart. This statement by Krishna gives evidence of how one can please the Supreme Lord simply by addressing him. Hey Krishna, hey Govinda. The Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is also simply an address to the Lord and his energy. So to anyone who is constantly engaged in addressing the Lord and his energy, we can imagine how much the Supreme Lord is obliged. It is impossible for the Lord to ever forget such a devotee. It is clearly stated in this verse that anyone who addresses the Lord immediately attracts the attention of the Lord, who always remains obliged to him. Another instance of Krishna's feeling of obligation is stated in connection with his dealings with Jambavan. When the Lord was present as Lord Ramachandra, Jambavan, the great king of the monkeys, rendered very faithful service to him. When the Lord again appeared as Lord Krishna, he married Jambavan's daughter and paid him all the respect that is usually given to superiors. Any honest person is obliged to his friend if some service has been rendered unto him. Since Krishna is the supreme honest personality, how can he forget an obligation to his servitor?
Yeah, I mean that's about Draupadi, right? And that's exactly why the war started. That was like the
final straw.
Final straw. And yeah, Krishna became so obliged that he wiped all the Kuru dynasty because Draupadi was insulted. So much power she had. Patrick, we're reading chapter 21st. and Prabhupada goes deep into Krishna's 64 qualities. I guess I will read. If you would like, you can catch up and help us with the reading, if you like. No, it's okay too. We read grateful, now it's determined. Determined. Any person who observes regulative principles and fulfills his promises by practical activity is called determined. As far as the Lord's determination is concerned, there is an example in his dealings in the Harivamsha. This is in connection with Lord Krishna's fighting the King of Heaven. Okay, that's okay. Happy that you're here with us in hearing. Fighting the King of Heaven, Indra, who was forcibly deprived of the Parijata flower. Parijata is a kind of lotus flower grown on the heavenly planets. One Satyabhama, one of Krishna's queens, wanted that lotus flower, and Krishna promised to deliver it. But Indra refused to part with his Parijata flower. Therefore, there was a great fight with Krishna and the Pandavas on one side and all the other demigods on the other side. Demigods are completely crazy. They're fighting Krishna. But usually the demigods, they fight the demons and then Krishna helps them. I think it's funny because just a chapter before, Krishna went to help the demigods. And on the way back, he wanted to please his wife and he stole the flower, and Indra got whack on. He started chasing after Krishna.
Yeah.
Completely lost it.
Well, that's kind of a major theme in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam in Krishna book. That it's a major thing because the demigods, they're godly and they're servants, they're devotees, but they get bewildered, and so Rama gets bewildered in some pastime. Indra definitely gets bewildered. Indra tried to murder all the residents of Vrindavan.
Yeah.
That's pretty bewildering. Shiva gets bewildered.
Oh, right.
Shiva creates a Shiva monster who tries to fight with the Krishna monster.
Okay.
So that's a theme that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ahamadir Devanam Maharshinam Chasarvasha. He says, I am the source of all the demigods. So he's like another demigod. No, he's the source. He has Vyantiat Surya. He bewilders all the demigods when it's his service to do so. So that Krishna is David, he's the god of the gods. It's an important thing.
And yet all the demigods, they trying to compete with them sometimes. It's really interesting. Ultimately, Krishna defeated all of them and took the Parijat flower. Did I skip anything?
I think we're good.
Yeah. Which he presented to his queen. So in regard to that occurrence, Krishna told Narada Muni, my dear great sage of the demigods, now you can declare to the devotees in general and to the non-devotees in particular that in this matter of taking the Parijat flower, all the demigods, the Gandharvas, the Nagas, the demons, Rakshasas, Yakshas, the Panagas, tried to defeat me, but none could make me break my promise to my queen. There is another promise by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. I was just about to say that. To the effect that his devotee will never be vanquished. Kuntiya pratijanehi name bhakta prayashati. So a sincere devotee who is always engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord should know for certain that Krishna will never break his promise. He will always protect his devotee in every circumstance. There's also, I think, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, declare Arjuna boldly that is it the same one, that my devotee will never perish? Or?
Yeah, that's the verse.
It's the same. Okay.
I mean, there's a verse where it says, I am partial to no one,
Yes.
yet my devotee is very dear to me.
Yes. That's true. Krishna showed how he fulfills his promise by delivering the Parijat flower to Satyabhama, by saving Draupadi from being insulted, and by freeing Arjuna from the attacks of all enemies. The promise of Krishna that his devotees are never vanquished, and also previously been admitted by Indra when he was defeated in the Govardhan Lila. When Krishna stopped the villagers of Braj, Vrindavan, from worshipping Indra, Indra became angry and therefore inundated Vrindavan with continual rain. Krishna, however, protected all the citizens and animals of Vrindavan by lifting Govardhan hill, which served as an umbrella. After the incident was over, Indra surrendered to Krishna with many prayers, in which he admitted, by your lifting Govardhan hill and protecting the citizens of Vrindavan, you have kept your promise that your devotees are never to be vanquished.
Right.
Hare Krishna.
You want to read, George? Or, yeah.
I can read, yeah.
Is it his turn?
Expert judge of time and circumstances, number 19. Krishna, yes, number 19, expert judge of time and circumstances. Krishna was very expert in dealing with people according to circumstances, country, time, and paraphernalia. How he could take advantage of a particular time, circumstance, and person is expressed by him while talking to Uddhav about his rasa dance with the gopis. He says, the most opportune time is the full moon night in autumn, like tonight. The best place within the universe is Vrindavan, and the most beautiful girls are the gopis. So, my dear friend Uddhava, I think I should now take advantage of all these circumstances and engage myself in the rasa dance.
Seer by the authority of the scriptures. A person who acts exactly according to the tenets of scripture is called Shastra Chakshus. Shastra Chakshus means one who sees through the eyes of the authorized scriptures. Actually, any man of knowledge and experience should see everything through these books. For example, with our naked eye, we perceive the sun globe simply as some glaring substance. But when we see through authorized books of science and other literature, we can understand how much greater the sun globe is than this earth and how powerful it is. So seeing things through the naked eye is not actually seeing. Seeing things through the authorized books or authorized teachers is the correct way to see. So although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
I just wanted to say something in this connection that
Yeah.
that example always fascinated me. It's so simple, but when you think about it, how do we know what is, let's say I give you some substance and it's you cannot understand what is in the substance in the bottle unless you read it, right? And you trust the label. If it's written poison there, you cannot test it, right?
Yeah.
So the seeing actually is the most deficient sense perception we have, and yet we put so much emphasis on that all the time. Can you show me God? What is the proof? Show me the proof.
Yeah.
But that's the less perfect. If we live just by seeing, we're gonna die,
Yeah.
Prabhupada emphasizes that we overrate seeing.
Yeah.
We overrate seeing, and yes, that's a clear example. A 2-year-old child sees the sun as a yellow circle in the sky, but that's ignorance. So even we see with material knowledge, no, and it's actually this great globe that's a million times bigger than the Earth. So we're really seeing through the eyes of knowledge, even materially. It's such a weak statement. Sometimes people think they're they're showing that they're very rational people. I only believe what I can see.
Yeah.
And it's so we, common questions. Okay, have you ever seen an atom?
Yeah.
No. Well, do you believe atoms exist? Well, of course. Well, you just said you only believe we can see. Well, so actually, no, we heard from our science teacher in junior high school, and we trust our science teacher.
Yeah.
And we're not saying we shouldn't trust him. We're just illustrating the point that most knowledge comes through hearing, not through seeing. And that's certainly true of spiritual knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that old saying, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just so prominent nowadays because everything is so visual. Like this Bhagavatam was, like the Bhagavatam was spoken, everything was spoken. Now everything is like all the gadgets, it's based on actually the visual sense perception, not so much even the touch, like it's all touch, but you don't touch actually anything. Just glass, you tap on the glass. And hearing, I even heard that 80% of the people that watch YouTube, for example, they watch it on mute.
Yeah.
They don't watch it.
80%?
Something like that, very high percentage of people that just put,
Oh, yeah.
they use subtitles or something like that, because they watch it on the go.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
And Patrick, Kara likes that knowledge comes from hearing, not seeing. Yeah, Prabhupada, there's one comment. My family often challenges me with the whole, where is the proof? Never feel confident to respond. I remember once Prabhupada, he gives this really beautiful visual analogy that I really connect to. I myself, I'm like a very visual person. And Prabhupada, he was asking like, how do you perceive how powerful is the ocean? Like you can go and look at the ocean, but so much is going underneath, right? Like how much you can see of the ocean. You cannot touch, you cannot jump. If you jump in the ocean, you're gonna die. But if you hear how the waves clashing on the bank, on the bank, like, then you can hear how powerful is the ocean, not by seeing, but by hearing. It's like another beautiful analogy that I remember from Prabhupada.
What is the proof? So first of all, we can ask to anyone, what for you constitutes proof? Okay. Sometimes people they just feel like they're smart if they can say, yeah, can you prove it? Okay, and that way they try to be cynical about everything. Sure, yeah. So any of the tenets of Krishna consciousness, philosophy, and practice, we can show, or we should be able to show, how it's logical. It's logical. The body always changes, but there's some constant identity. We should be familiar with the logical proofs, not the logical evidence that there is an intelligence behind the universe. That we talked earlier at lunchtime today or breakfast about how all of the main theories of modern science, whether it's life from a big bang, life from matter, or evolution of species from lower to higher levels of organization, they actually go against the principle of entropy. So we should show logically how everything in Krishna consciousness makes sense. Logic, though, in itself is not a proof. That's true. So for an actual scientific process, we have we have a logical hypothesis, and then we have an experiment. That's science. To prove it, if it just makes sense, that's not proof, that's a beginning. But then what's the experiment? Like a chemist can show how it's logical that 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen makes water. But you say, yeah, but can you prove it? Okay, well, yeah, so you can go into the laboratory and you can combine the chemicals and see if you get the same results as other chemists. So we have an experiment that we can do to experience ourselves as spirit soul, to experience all the truths of Bhagavad Gita. They make logical sense, a lot more sense than any other theory of life, theory of the universe, theory of self, theory of purpose. Makes a lot more sense. And it's true, logic in itself is not proof. So then if we want the proof, open the bottle of honey and you can taste it, and then you'll experience the proof that honey is sweet.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have some conclusion with Tusa. Makes a lot of sense. Their conclusion that there's no conclusion. Ultimately die and there's nothing. Not conclusive science.
Show me any other intellectual, philosophical system of life that makes as much or more sense. I've been asking, challenging that for almost 40 years. And if someone shows it to me, I'll go with it.
Yeah.
No one's come close, not even 1%. And then if someone says, well, okay, but can you prove it? Well, we see it's just like, we can show you that 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen makes sense algebraically. If you want proof, go into the laboratory. So if you want proof of the truths of this philosophical system, practice bhakti yoga and you'll experience it. Chant Hare Krishna, follow the regular principles, regularly attend morning program. Then you'll experience the difference between spirit and matter, between soul and body, and all of the precepts there in Bhagavad Gita and nectar of devotion.
And if you haven't made the endeavor to prove it, then you got no grounds to stand on.
Yeah, okay, then it would seem you're not really that sincere.
Yeah.
You're really not that sincere.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like you actually want to know. Yeah. Yeah.
If you'd like, you can continue until we stop here in the middle. So.
Yeah. Sorry, we're on seer, the authoritative scriptures. Okay. Seer by the authority of the scriptures. A person who acts exactly according to the tenets of scripture is called, okay, yeah, sorry, that's right. Seeing things through the naked eye is not actually seeing. Seeing things through the authorized books or authorized teachers is the correct way to see. So although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and can see all that is past, present, and future, to teach the people in general, he used to always refer to the scriptures. For example, in the Bhagavad Gita, although Krishna was speaking as the supreme authority, he still mentioned and quoted Vedanta Sutra as authority. There is a statement in the Srimad Bhagavatam wherein a person jokingly says that Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, is known as the seer through the Shastras. In order to establish his authority, however, he is now engaged in seeing the gopis, whereby the gopis are becoming maddened.
21, pure. Would you like to read your Govinda?
There are 2 kinds of supreme purity. When one type is possessed, one is able to deliver a sinful person. When the other type is possessed, one does not do anything which is impure. A person who possesses either of these qualities is called supremely pure. Krishna is both. He can deliver all sinful conditioned souls, and at the same time, he never does anything by which he can be contaminated. In this connection, Vidura, while trying to detach his elder brother Dhritarashtra from his familial attachment, said, "My dear brother, you just fix your mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, who is worshipped with beautiful erudite verses by great sages and saintly persons. Krishna is the supreme deliverer amongst all other deliverers. Undoubtedly, there are great demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, but their positions as deliverers depend always upon the mercy of Krishna. Therefore, Vidura advised his elder brother Dhritarashtra to concentrate his mind and worship only Krishna. If one simply chants the holy name of Krishna, This holy name will rise within one's heart like the powerful sun and will immediately dissipate all the darkness of ignorance. Vidura advised Dhritarashtra to therefore think always of Krishna so that the volumes of contaminations due to sinful activities would be washed off immediately. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna is addressed by Arjuna as Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, the Supreme Pure. There are many other instances exhibiting Krishna's supreme purity.
That's from the, 11th chapter? Something like that. 214.
10th chapter, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. It's right after the seed verses. It's chapter 10, text 12.
22. Self-controlled. The person who can control his senses fully is called Vashi, or self-controlled. In this connection, it is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, all 16,000 wives of Krishna were exquisitely beautiful, that their smiling and shyness were able to captivate the minds of great demigods like Lord Shiva. But still, they could not even agitate the mind of Krishna, in spite of their attractive feminine behavior. Every one of the 1,000 wives of Krishna was thinking that Krishna was captivated by her feminine beauty. But this was not the case. Krishna is therefore the supreme controller of the senses. And this is admitted in the Bhagavad Gita, where he addressed as Rishikesh, the master of the senses. It's like an interesting dynamic there. The wives of Krishna, they thought that he is captivated by them, but he actually was never captivated.
Fully self-controlled.
Yes.
He is captivated by the love and devotion of the devotee.
Yes. I mean, the dynamic in general, it's kind of interesting, because I observed that in like men and women dynamic in general, women, they're captivated by a man who is not captivated by them.
Right.
But I was always thinking, well, then why the man would be captivated by a woman if he's not captivated by her? It's like they're looking, in a sense, for like a monk, but then why a monk will look for a woman?
Well, yeah, because there are 6 opulences and they're all attractive. Wealth, strength, intelligence, beauty, fame, and the 6th opulence is renunciation. So renunciation it's attractive. It's attractive. Prabhupada, maybe it's a Nectar of Devotion or somewhere, he talks about the cheating game. There will be fake sannyasis who dress as sannyasis, and they'll go to holy places to look for women. And there are women who will go to holy places to try to seduce sannyasis to have a child with a great renowned sannyasi. So this is going on.
Yeah.
That must be quite the thing to be. I mean, quite the people who are actually following must be able to see these things happening. Like must be quite the test to not be criticizing people and stuff. Or
You say pathetic?
No, quite the test to not get your mind wrapped up in those things. Like there's
From the point of view of the woman? Or
no, the real sannyasis, like when they must be able to see all these weird things happening,
Well, Prabhupada often quotes his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. This is the society of the cheaters and the cheated. So, of course, we can point fingers and we can look at how am I participating as a cheater? How am I participating in getting cheated?
Yeah.
And of course, Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Siddhanta, they're giving us the real thing. So that's our opportunity to be sincere, to follow and embrace the genuine article.
Yeah. And I remember when I was going through this, like I guess I'm still going, I don't know where I'm at really, but I was going very grossly through this, like a cheating period, and I was opening Prabhupada's letters randomly, and Prabhupada, he sent me this like really heavy letter that Krishna doesn't mind, like if you've fallen, but if you pretend not to be fallen and you actually fallen, if you pretend to be a grihasta being a brahmachari, or a brahmachari being a grihasta,
The Brahmastra.
then Krishna, he hates it the most. He's very displeased.
So wherever you tried to go, Prabhupada was speaking to you personally.
Yeah, yeah. It was like a day after day that I would like, everything I would read, it would be about that. Like, and I didn't even like, was looking for any quotes like that. It was just popping on, the feed or like the letters that I would read. Krishna.
The next one is Steadfast. Who wants to read?
I have this theory also. Like I've noticed, for example, this like when interacting with women, like for example, trying to find a partner, I feel like, yeah, if I'm trying to, like, as I was trying to consider what this means, like to be able to offer emotional protection. So if I'm doing things like to try to manipulate women to like me or whatever, like this attraction thing, then that undermines my capacity to give emotional protection, because I'm literally purposefully trying to affect their emotions to make them attached to me. So I'm in that I'm destroying their capacity to protect themselves, right? And also with it, when I'm doing that, I'm also destroying my own capacity to offer the protection. I don't know how to explain it any more clear than that, but does that sound right?
Yeah, subtle or not so subtle games of adoration and distinction. Yeah. I'll be your hero, I'll rescue you. I'm needy for you to need me. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then so the root is material desire, and to uproot that deep ingrained material desire, whether we're in the bodies of women or men, that's this process of Krishna consciousness. It gets to the root, it gets to the very root of all that material gameplay.
Yeah, pretty subtle stuff.
George, would you like to read Steadfast?
Steadfast. A person who continues to work until his desired goal is achieved is called steadfast. There was a fight between Krishna and King Jambavan, and Krishna was to take the valuable Siamantaka jewel from the king. The king tried to hide himself in the forest, but Krishna would not become discouraged. Krishna finally got the jewel by seeking out the king with great steadfastness.
Forbearing. How about you, Keith?
Yeah. A person who tolerates all kinds of troubles, even though such troubles appear to be unbearable, is called forbearing. Sorry, I was kind of spacing out, so I want to read it again.
Patrick is asking, I wonder if dhira Govinda Prabhu would share about his experience with whoever gave the best challenge to him to try to provide a better philosophy.
Okay. What, that was written just now or a few minutes ago when I spoke that?
Well, I guess it's in relation to what you were speaking before, but Patrick wrote it now.
Okay, I'll comment on that. Yeah, I'm being honest. Like I've never. It's not about me. I've never found anyone who can hold a stick to Prabhupada. As far as philosophy. Now, what I'll say is like very few people are even know how to be philosophical. It's just a fact, and we can take it for granted because like we have like evening programs and we're discussing about this philosophy morning program, we study Bhagavad Gita, like people don't do that. And and of course it's distinctively human to be philosophical. And very, very few humans, including in the university, know how to be philosophical, know how to critically think. So if I even like encounter someone who sort of like knows how to think philosophically and discuss, I appreciate that. And then as far as what their philosophy, most people are just, it's like in this category and labeling, it's different forms of defense and just rationalize. So, but I've just never found someone who can hold a match to the son of Srila Prabhupada. I'm not even talking about purity or devotion. Of course, it's all connected with that. But just in terms of intellectual and philosophical, anyone who has a philosophy that can, there's maybe okay, there's some. I found in pretty much every philosophy there's some grains of truth. Otherwise, they wouldn't be attractive. We can look at what Adolf Hitler preached. We'll find some grains of truth there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be attractive. Right? So there's some grains of truth, and then even those grains of truth, it finds its completion and perfection and source in this Achintya Veda Tattva, Vedic conclusive philosophy that we get through Srila Prabhupada. That's why, like in the fields of psychology, personal transformation, social work, coaching, all these fields, leadership, training, that so much of our endeavor in Sattva is to show that whatever is valid in those fields, not just can be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness, but finds its completion, perfection, and most profound, sublime utilization in Bhagavad Gita, in Srimad Bhagavatam. So I found lots of truth in philosophers and personal growth authors. So I found lots of truth, and I find them in so much more completion in what we get from Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada's giving realms of truth that they aren't found anywhere else. And there is truth in different places, and sometimes presented in ways, like in our seminars, we have quotes from dozens of sources that are not Vedic sources, but they have this Vedic knowledge. In relation to Patrick's statement or question, some really good books on that, because Prabhupada discusses people who know how to think philosophically outside of the Vedic tradition. And so Prabhupada extensively engaged in conversations regarding like dozens of the premier Western philosophers from pre-Socrates, from the early Greeks, through his time, but at least through the maybe mid-20th century, and his disciples Shyamasundar and Hayagriva particularly would represent these philosophers. Hayagriva was an English professor at Ohio State University. Shyamasundar was quite an intellectual, and so there's different ways to. Again, it's not about me. It's about hearing how Prabhupada responds to those philosophers. And there's from St. Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, Pascal, Descartes, Darwin, Freud, Marx, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a brilliant side of Prabhupada, which we get it in the Bhagavatam Nectar of Devotion, but there we get it in dialectic form, that the philosophers, represented by Shyamasundar Hayagriva, the philosophers put up a statement, a hypothesis, a dialectic, a challenge, and then Prabhupada responds to it. So we can find those original conversations. In fact, I have them in the 7-volume set called collected lectures by, it's the same set that has Chaitanya Charitamrita lectures. So I have the original transcribed conversations, and in like some edited form, they exist in, well, the main book they exist in is called Dialectic Spiritualism, and they exist in other forms in some other books. So I just mentioned that so then you can taste for yourself, kind of, because these are, for the most part, these are people who know how to think. And so, and which is, again, there's less and less philosophers in the human race. So, and to see how Prabhupada responds, how Prabhupada handles what Prabhupada appreciates from the different philosophies, where Prabhupada just exposes the deviant, incomplete thinking like that, and then you can see for yourself. And that's my conclusion. There's I'm not saying there's not truth anywhere. There's truth everywhere, and we want to develop the eyes to realize that truth. There's truth everywhere, and wherever we see that truth, in Prabhupada's teachings, it's found in far greater completion and depth. That's my experience. Thanks for the question.
So you haven't found anybody that challenged it, then? That's what you're saying.
That was my conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And every time I read like that, it deepens my admiration, awe, and trust and gratitude for Srila Prabhupada. So I'm not saying it's a waste of time to read these, because whenever I go there, it strengthens me in my enthusiasm to follow Prabhupada.
I think you.
Yeah. Okay.
We just finished Steadfast.
Okay.
We'll start.
Oh yeah, I started forbearing. Yeah. A person who tolerates all kinds of troubles, even though such troubles appear to be unbearable, is called forbearing. When Krishna was residing at the place of his spiritual master, he did not mind taking all troubles in rendering service to his guru. Although his body was very soft and delicate, it is the duty of the disciple to execute all services unto the spiritual master, despite all kinds of difficulties. The disciple living at the residence of the spiritual master has to go begging from door to door and bring everything back to the spiritual master. When prasadam is being served, the spiritual master is supposed to call each and every disciple to come eat. If by chance the spiritual master forgets to call the disciple to partake of the prasadam, it is enjoined in the scriptures that the student should fast on that day rather than accept food on his own initiative. There are many such strictures. Sometimes also Krishna went to the forest to collect dry wood for fuel. Krishna went to, I don't know. There are many such strictures. Sometimes Krishna went to the forest to collect dry wood for fuel. Okay, well I guess at his homes, for his wives and stuff.
I think you're talking about when Krishna was at the ashram of Sandipani Muni.
Oh yeah. Oh.
He's in his brahmachari phase with Sudama, maybe that's 16, 17 years old, something like that. And there's of course the story of the Krishna book. He went into the forest to collect wood with Sudama, and they got lost, and it was a big rainstorm. I think it's referring to his brahmachari days, when Krishna was brahmachari.
25, forgiving. Would you like? Do you go in to?
Me?
Would you like?
Okay. So 25 is forgiving. A person who can tolerate all kinds of offenses from the opposite party is known to be forgiving. Lord Krishna's forgiving quality is described in the Mahabharata in connection with his forbidding the killing of Shishupal. King Shishupal was the monarch of the Chedi kingdom and although he happened to be a cousin of Krishna's, he was always envious of him. Whenever they would meet, Shishupal would try to insult Krishna and call him ill names as much as possible. In the arena of the Rajasriya sacrifice of Maharaj Yudhisthira, when Shishupal began to call Lord Krishna ill names, Krishna did not care and remained silent. Some of the people at the arena were prepared to kill Shishupal, but Krishna restricted them. He was so forgiving. It is said that when there is a thundering sound in the clouds, the mighty lion immediately replies with his thundering roar. But the lion doesn't care when all the foolish jackals begin to make their less important sounds. It's great imagery there.
Mm-hmm.
Sri Yamunacharya praises Krishna's power of forgiveness with the following statement. My dear Lord Ramachandra, you are so merciful to have excused the crow's clawing on the nipples of Janaki simply because of his bowing down before you. Once Indra, the king of heaven, assumed the form of a crow and attacked Sita, Janaki, Lord Ramachandra's wife, by striking her on the breast. This was certainly an insult to the universal mother Sita, and Lord Ramachandra was immediately prepared to kill the crow. But because later on the crow bowed down before the Lord, he excused his offense. Sri Yamunacharya further says in his prayer that the forgiving power of Lord Krishna is even greater than that of Lord Ramachandra, because Shishupal was always in the habit of insulting Krishna, not only in one lifetime, but continually throughout 3 lives. Still, Krishna was so kind that he gave Shishupal the salvation of merging into his existence. From this, we can understand that the goal of the monist to merge into the effulgence of the Supreme is not a very difficult problem. Persons like Shishupal, who are consistently inimical to Krishna, can also get this liberation.
Sure. Anyone remembers the 3 births that Shishupal had before? I mean, the 2 births. Shishupal and I know. And everyone except Dhira Govinda. And probably Patrick. Patrick probably knows too. Shishupal, he appeared in Krishna Lila with his brother, Shishupal and what was that? Dantavakra, right. They were cousins in Krishna Lila, but they were the original Jai and Vijay that fell down from the spiritual world. And okay, you're heading to bed. Thank you, Kara, for joining.
Hare Krishna.
And after they fell down from the spiritual world, they took birth 3 times, and then they had so much fun that they asked Krishna to again join him for the 4th time because they liked it so much. So the first birth was Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. They were fighting. First, Hiranyaksha, he was fighting Krishna as Varaha, the boar incarnation. I think I was here already for the festival. I think that was before the course. And Hiranyakashipu was fighting Narasimhadev. You remember, I guess, Hiranyakashipu, right? So, and then after that, the second time was, I'm going to give you a clue. It's a celebration we just celebrated.
Ravana.
Was it Ravana?
Ravana and Kumbhakarna from Ramachandra Lila.
It's not Kumbha and Nikumba wasn't.
I think it's Kumbhakarna and Ravana.
Ravana. They were all brothers, right?
Yeah.
Kumbha and Nikumba. So Ravan and Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna, I like how Prabhupada, he speaks how Kumbhakarna was sleeping half of his lifetime to get special powers. And if someone sleeps 12 hours a day, he's just like Kumbhakarna.
Yeah.
So fun. And then the third one is Shishupal and Dantavakra.
But do you know specifically which one was Shishupal in his births? Was he?
I'm not clear on that.
No.
And then the fourth time that Ramachandra referred to was Jagai and Madai, Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Yes. So in a sense, yeah, this giant Vijay falling, that comprises a huge part of the plot of the Bhagavatam from the 3rd canto through the 10th canto.
Yeah. 26. Maybe we read one more and we can reflect what stood for us. Would you like to read the 26? Thank you, Prabhu, for joining.
Hare Krishna.
Grave.
Sure.
George Prabhu.
26. Grave. A person who does not express his mind to everyone, or whose mental activity and plan of action are very difficult to understand, is called grave. After Lord Sri Krishna had been offended by Brahma, Brahma prayed to him to be excused. But in spite of his offering nice prayers to Krishna, Brahma could not understand whether Krishna was satisfied or still dissatisfied. In other words, Krishna was so grave that he did not take the prayers of Brahma very seriously. Another instance of Krishna's gravity is found in connection with his love affairs with Radharani. Krishna was always very silent about his love affairs with Radharani, so much so that Baladev, Krishna's elder brother and constant companion, could not understand the transformations of Krishna on account of his gravity.
Now I get it where Prabhupada gets it from because they asked Prabhupada once, what is, because that's still one of the qualities of the 26 qualities of a pure devotee. Oh, well, we are on the 26th quality. And it's gravity. The pure devotee is always grave. And they asked Prabhupada, what does it mean? Prabhupada, he would say that you cannot understand what he's contemplating about. You cannot read his mind. It's I find it like an interesting description of that quality.
Danielle mentioned the word inscrutable.
You say?
Danielle mentioned the word inscrutable. It's an English word.
Inscrutable.
Inscrutable.
The synonym
It's a synonym. To what?
to what you're discussing.
Grave?
Well, I've never heard grave used that way, but when you talk about impossible to understand or interpret, that's the definition of inscrutable.
Yeah, did you get that?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, when you scrutinize something, it means you're watching and studying and trying to figure it out.
Like pick it apart, yeah.
Yeah. So inscrutable.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen some people, like I watched some interview with the Dalai Lama, and I don't know. You could just see how it seems like their emotion it's his. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Dear Govinda, he's grave, you know. Sometimes it's hard to speak, and it's almost can be scary sometimes, because like expect like a certain response or like mood or emotion or something that normally people do, which may be like sentimental, or it's like meant to impress or something like that, you know, and or it's just, and when they don't respond in that way, it's kind of like, oh, it's like, you don't, I don't know what to make of it. Yeah. Oh, are they angry or that or what? And then you look at them, no, they're not angry, they're not this. Okay. And it's just, yeah.
So gravity stood for you the most of these qualities?
I've noticed it. I've noticed it in people, definitely. And it's,
but I mean,
it's an interesting quality.
I was just curious to know, Prabhu's, what's your experience of reading? What stood for you from these qualities that we read? We read across like 10 qualities?
Steadfast.
There was grave, there was forgiving, forbearing, steadfast, self-controlled, pure,
You want to share?
zero authoritative scriptures expert.
Hmm?
In judgment, place and circumstance. Determined, grateful.
So Danielle wants to share for her which one was her one that stood out.
Hmm.
So mine was grave, the one that we just did.
Yeah, I like that one too.
I have not heard grave used that way before. I usually think of grave as being like a little bit more severe than just indisputable. Like it has more of a somberness to it, like a sadness or like a yeah. Anyways,
Boring.
I have
A boring person.
Like great, yeah, maybe you might see it in somebody who's like really depressed, or maybe like really angry or something like that. Like they just don't want to project anything to other people. That's when you're relating to that. That's what you're.
yeah, and I often in my process get the feedback that I don't have a lot of warmth, or that I'm cold, or that I, that I'm clinical or unsentimental or professional, but not in a good way, like in a distant sort of way. So I like the idea of spiritualizing that quality that might have a,
like a strength.
Like a strength, instead of seeing it as like, oh, this is something that I need to like abolish in my soul. It's like, oh, there's a spiritual version of this type of soberness, of this type of I don't know, almost it's not like a sadness, it's just it's almost like, yes, like I think professional, or like a professional distance is what I feel the most. It's almost like sometimes I feel like my feelings get in the way of communicating or being present, and oftentimes in discussing my feelings, there's a lack of clarity, especially before Sabatov, before learning how to communicate well. So I've always valued precision, and I think this quality, like you talk about Krishna keeping all of his activities kind of close to himself, it probably allowed him and his brother to have more time together in shared activities, So I don't know, that's what came up for me.
Yeah, so rather than you're seeing it as like a quality that you have that is conducive for spiritual life, or as an aspect of your spiritual quality, that when people may not be, they may be looking at you and trying to figure you out and stuff like that, and just because they can't figure you out doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, that it's not like they're making all these assumptions like you're too distant or this or that, but you're recognizing from reading this that it's actually it's really just a quality that's like an inherent in your being, rather than these false assessments of what other people perceive it as being.
Yes, and that distance sometimes is not created intentionally by me. Like you're sharing about like having a little bit of intimidation. I get the feedback frequently that I'm intimidating, and that's always very perplexing for me. I'm always very confused by that. I'm like, how am I, I don't see myself as intimidating or trying to come off that way. And so I think it's a misapplication of this quality. So I would like to cultivate this in a spiritual way.
Some realization. Nice for you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Krishna.
Yeah.
What was?
I like too the grave. I more see the grave as like childlike, in the sense that you cannot, like that's what devotees many times would share about Prabhupada, that you can never know what Prabhupada is up for. Like Shama Sundar, he writes in this Rhinoceros book that every time before he would open up the door to Prabhupada's quarters, you would always be excited, like, to what Prabhupada will come up today with. Like, no one had any idea.
I like that.
Really, it's kind of like a child, like you cannot understand what the hell is going in their mind.
Yeah.
Where are they getting from, like, this inspiration? And it's Krishna. Prabhupada, he's just in touch with the source of intuition so directly that he has like flows of like creativity, inspiration, and it's really depicts spiritual life in a really interesting light. The spontaneous, especially now we're reading about the spontaneous devotional service. So yeah, the spiritual life is like that. It's unpredictable in a sense.
Yeah, so like from the outside, it may seem you don't know what's going on, or there may seem like there's not that much going on, but inside there's a really dynamic person or dynamic thing that can come out in different ways, spontaneous ways. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. How, George?
Yeah, I was going between two. The one that I initially kind of really I appreciated and aspired to was steadfastness, but then there's also determined. And determined here says any person who observes regulative principles and fulfills his promises by practical activity. Whereas steadfastness was a person who continues to work until his desired goal is achieved. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like those qualities are kind of similar, but I feel like, yeah, and that with forbearing coming through that, I feel like that whole idea is kind of what this process has been through for me from the beginning through now. It's just, I don't know, it's like continuing despite like so many disturbances. So that really speaks to me a lot. It's almost like the more I understand, the more disturbing, um, you know, I'm more aware of the disturbances that come up. And so it's encouraging this idea of steadfastness and forbearance and determination to be steady and to keep going. So I feel like it's very kind of alive in me and something I very much aspire to. Dropping the non-looking good mask, dropping the looking good mask, and wanting or even seeking for subtle material kind of adoration, praise, approval, and playing the same old games I've played my whole life. It's such a nice thing, and that's what I keep praying to Krishna today while I was chanting. Was just please give me the strength to not be attached to fruitive results and just show up and make mistakes and fall hard, and like I feel like that's such like a very much present and alive in me right now.
Yeah. Nice.
How about you, Keith?
I have a strong desire to be steadfast. It's not really something that's really much in my life, but so I never really even noticed it that much until you said it. But it's something that I really want. I'm taking a. I just got a book in the mail about ADHD and how it's like that, like the qualities of it. You just can't have the focus to stick to goals, and mind out wandering and all that. And I've had so many plans and watched so many things just crumble before my eyes and just not materialize, and yeah, it's like once you're talking about it, I mean, determined, I've had some amount of determination, which has carried me through in my life, for sure. I definitely could grow in that. That's definitely for sure. But the steadfastness has been something that I've never really had much of an experience of, and I can see how causes endless frustration,
Mm.
disappointment. But the ones that stuck out for me most was clever, because I've been wondering about this, because it says that women are 4 times more clever. 6, was it?
I think they're more lusty.
Yeah.
But that's another topic.
But they are they're supposed to be 4 or 6 times more clever. And I was wondering what that was, because I was thinking about being like, I can't remember the way that I was describing it anyway, but be able to act in the moment, like, just
Witty.
witty, and like when an opportunity comes, they can just boom, do it. But
Like
I like the way that, pardon me?
shrewd.
Snooze?
Shrewd. SHREWD. Yeah.
Well, it could manifest in that way. It could be used in that way, but just like being able to think on the fly, when things come up, then it needs a quick decision or something like that, then clever's like that, and I guess if somebody wanted to be shrewd, they could use it in that way much more efficiently, But yeah, a person who performs various types of work at once is called clever. So multitasking, and that's same. I heard men aren't so good at multitasking. Women are better than that. So, and there was forbearing. A person who tolerates all kinds of troubles, even though such troubles appear to be unbearable, is called forbearing. So this has been, like with this ADHD, has been a constant torture on my mind, pretty much. I mean, I'm getting better as time goes on, but it's been quite torture for me, especially because I did certain activities that really made it 10 times worse, So that was pretty much since I was 17. It's like ruined my life. So I can connect to that. Yeah, and I can see how it's because of going through that has definitely giving me some realization of forbearance of to deal with things in life, and then also to be forbearing of other people. So I'm grateful for that. And then the grave was the other one that, yeah, definitely was most impactful. I like grave.
John.
Hey, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah. I think because I noticed like Saturn, he's like in my first house, and that's the strongest planet in my chart. And he's like the planet of that type thing. He's just like this really aesthetic, guy that lives in the woods and doesn't really, doesn't play in anybody, or he's just grave, like to an extreme. And I've noticed that like sometimes if I just, people, like for example, they tell jokes or whatever, and I just don't feel like laughing. It's not that I'm insulted. It's not even that I'm insulted or I'm angry or anything. It's just, I just don't feel like laughing. Right. And, but it's definitely seems like takes like bravery, definitely seems like to take, person who does not express his mind to everyone, or whose mental activity and plan of action are very difficult to understand, is grave. And I've noticed this. I have this also tendency to express my mind a lot to people, and I can see how doing it too much definitely can make the mind like airy. You're just kind of like splaying it out all over the place. And then like about when other, Larry, like your wife is saying that when people can't can't read what's going on in your head, then they start getting afraid. They start making all assumptions, and it's not easy to be able to see people's response to it and be able to remain internally stable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like in saying no to flattering someone with laughter. It's like a deeper yes to kind of connecting with what is alive in you, what's true for you at that moment, which is you don't want to laugh, and you're showing you're having awareness of some appreciation for that bravery and for that commitment to following through with what feels true for you in those moments, because it does take bravery to you know not try and please and not try and to just be honest with yourself and meet yourself where you're at. So it's very cool. I appreciate that very much. It's definitely something I could work on too. But yeah, you could see how people start speculating in those moments too. After that, like so you could see how that could create some friction and so forth.
Yeah, or like at work, I'm just thinking of it, for example, like it says, Prabhupada says not to get into gossip, right? So it's often working around a bunch of guys and somebody does something or whatever, they just start talking about each other, right? Start talking about somebody. And then it's just like, okay, I'm not going to partake in this, but it's not easy to know how to do it, like in such a way that you're not, because when the guys, they start talking about somebody or complaining about things, then automatically, if you're not feeding into it, they just automatically think that you're thinking the same thing about them.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not jumping in on the group session to talk about that guy. But that must mean that I'm just sitting here judging you guys, right?
Yeah.
So like, how to just like be like, okay, I'm not playing into this. I'm not playing into this just complaining just for the heck of it and talking shit about people behind their back and just to fill the air, just to like, because I'm afraid of the silence and then have to deal with that.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I feel like really a lot of negativity. Like when you speak, I just want to end on like a positive note. Maybe you could give some.
Well, you haven't. I guess you're not able to connect to it because you haven't been working in the. But I guess it sounds negative, but it's been a really big strengthening point for me over the last year and a half, is learning how to apply these things, because when you go to the workforce, that's just these situations.
Just my feelings. You don't have to appreciate them. I'm just saying.
Yeah, so you're experiencing it as negative, and then I'm further I'll elaborate it on a little bit more on what the positive aspects of it then, so to kind of like try to
just to end up on a positive note.
So it gave me a lot of internal strength dealing with these situations and internal fortitude, and help me mature. And also it's like a nice way of preaching. I found a very powerful way of preaching, because people that after a while they start to catch on subtly, hey, they're not being like this with other people, and they start to like gain trust. I noticed people would start to trust me and really appreciate that, but it wasn't. It gave me a lot of internal strength. So thank you. Not to leave on a negative note.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for your association. 40 more qualities to go. And Wednesday morning is Hanuman's Thursday. If someone cannot make it Wednesday morning, we can do like a little teaser on Tuesday evening. So bring your quotes. It's going to be ecstatic. You just type Hanuman Prabhupada, what he speaks about Prabhupada. And you can share. Just like we did the Ram Navami, I think that was a nice thing. Jai Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Guru Premanande. Hari Hari.